Breaking news: Robert Redford, a renowned actor whose career spans 6 decades and featured roles in classics like Butch Cassidy, has made a shocking announcement. He has chosen to reveal, at the age of 88, those actors he detested working with. Redford recently gave an interview in which he trashed the 7 co-stars who had wronged him over his legendary career. It was crystal evident to Redford that these celebrities were not his cup of tea, whether it was due to personality clashes, conflicts on set, or professional rivalries. Come with us to discover their identities. Seventh number. Looking back on his impressive career, Robert Redford subtly confirmed what many had thought all along, according to Gene Hackman. He had the pleasure and the misfortune of working with countless Hollywood heavyweights, but none had compared to Gene Hackman. Redford claims that he was unable to form any kind of relationship with Hackman. Their strained relationship was also well known. It was immediately observed by everyone on set. Eventually, it was Hackman's wife who validated everyone's suspicions. Redford and her husband had a strained relationship, a sports drama about pride, ambition, and individual determination. Downhill Racer was filming when all of this occurred. Two characters, a teenage skier with an irrational obsession with winning and a ruthless coach, were the protagonists of the film. It turns out that the on-screen drama was only a reflection of the actual problems occurring off-screen. From the very beginning, the two actors were at odds with one another, and their animosity persisted throughout the performance. Gene Hackman's career was soaring at the time. He was rapidly rising to the top of his field after receiving an Oscar nomination for his performance in Bonnie and Clyde. Anyone working with Hackman was expected to maintain the same level of seriousness and intensity as he did. In contrast, Robert Redford had just become a genuine star thanks to his work in Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid and the popularity of Barefoot in the Park. Redford worked on Downhill Racer on his own time. He thought no one had ever done a decent film on skiing, a sport he adored. He cared profoundly about it. Redford's enthusiasm for the film was contagious, and it occasionally got the best of him. Redford was severely hurt in a tragic snowmobile accident that happened right before production started in Europe. Although stunt doubles were utilized for the majority of the skiing sequences, Redford adamantly insisted on performing numerous perilous acts personally, despite his ongoing recovery. The choice made Hackman lose his mind. Those days are vivid in Redford's memory. With an extended hand, Hackman would express his disapproval, scolding and dismissing it as silly. He was enraged that Redford would put his well-being and the production's future at jeopardy for the sake of proving a point. Everyone on set, from the insurance agents to the crew, was on edge, and Hackman had had enough. As soon as Redford planned another dangerous stunt, Hackman would complain about it to anybody who would listen. Their animosity toward one another intensified as time passed. Disputes ensued with each choice. Redford was sloppy and haughty, according to Hackman. Redford thought Hackman was very demanding and difficult to get along with, so they avoided making eye contact when filming. When they did talk, it was in a cursory, distant manner. The other actors and crew members could sense the mounting tension, which contributed to the somber mood. Both men performed admirably, regardless of the difficulties they were facing personally. However, neither of them attempted to maintain contact once filming wrapped. Collaborating once more was not something that was considered. They were both relieved to be apart because the animosity was so strong. When Hackman's wife eventually came clean about what had truly transpired, the narrative took an intriguing turn. She revealed that after long days on set, Gene would be drained, not from the physical labor, but from dealing with Redford when he finally got home. Redford was demanding, haughty, and uncooperative, according to her husband. Redford was one of the few of performers Gene actually loathed, according to her. Gene had worked with many others over his career. Redford did not acknowledge the reciprocity of the feeling till far later in life. Among the many brilliant and complex people he had worked with, Hackman remained one of the most challenging. It was clear that their personalities clashed. They were both stubborn and unwilling to compromise. Despite the positive reviews and memorable passionate performances in Downhill Racer, the experience left Redford and Hackman with a bad aftertaste. Subtly becoming a part of Hollywood history, their feud proved that even the biggest stars can have trouble getting along. Finally, though, Robert Redford has admitted what everyone else suspected all along. Gene Hackman was never his favorite. As Hackman's wife had already verified, he shared these sentiments. While Gene Hackman did initiate this list, it does not end there. Stick around. Jack Nicholson, number 6. No Hollywood tale concludes with champagne and handshakes. Some connections last through thick and thin in this glittering, famous-faced world, while others go away. For a long time, rumors circulated about a possible romance between Robert Redford and Jack Nicholson. Both men achieved great success and were highly esteemed. A subtle but noticeable tension existed between them behind the scenes. Now Robert Redford has come clean about his knowledge that Jack Nicholson disliked him from the start, and it started with a specific role. Redford and Nicholson were at the height of their careers in the early 1970s. Actor Nicholson was recognized for his fearlessness, spontaneity, and boundless energy. His ability to pleasantly surprise his audiences with each performance was a huge hit. Conversely, Redford's superb looks, subtle self-assurance, and composed screen presence won over audiences. Despite their stylistic differences, the two men were seeking the same thing: cinematic masterpieces and significant roles that audiences will never forget. Everyone paid attention when news spread that one of the most renowned books of all time, The Great Gatsby, was going to be turned into a movie. Hollywood was on the edge of its seat while Francis Ford Coppola penned the script. Attractive and enigmatic protagonist Jay Gatsby was a role that every actor aspired to play. However, none were more eager to get it than Jack Nicholson. According to Nicholson, he was the ideal choice for the role. No one else, he reasoned, could give Gatsby the unique gift of a secret sorrow behind the glitz that he could offer. The fact that he wanted the part was obvious, up until Robert Redford expressed an interest, nevertheless. Redford was compared to the ideal Gatsby by many because to his effortless charisma and handsome features. Redford subtly showed producers that he was the perfect fit for the role while working behind the scenes. Redford ended up getting the part. The news made Nicholson even more enraged. People close to him saw a shift, even though he refrained from publicly yelling or getting into a fight. The dispassionate looks, subsequent quiet, and physical separation were all picked up by friends. It wasn't merely dissatisfaction with one's career. It was so intimate. That was a time that Redford vividly recalls. As soon as his name was formally associated with The Great Gatsby, he could feel Nicholson's wrath. There was tension, but they never discussed it directly. When they crossed paths at Hollywood functions, Nicholson would evade Redford, making little eye contact and responding quickly and sharply. Despite the pain it caused, Redford recognized what was happening and accepted it as a reality of the harsh world in which they both existed. As time went on, Hackman's wife divulged other details regarding the private events. Nicholson, she confided in her close friends, never genuinely let go of his animosity. An occasional reference to The Great Gatsby would elicit a scathing remark about how drastically improved things could have been had he been the protagonist. She claims that it became one of Nicholson's lingering, unpleasant memories that he kept to himself, unwilling to let go of. Despite the icy relationship between them, Redford did confess that he always respected Nicholson's abilities. He had no intention of causing him pain by accepting the role, but now he knows exactly how it makes him feel. A part like Gatsby didn't materialize very frequently in Hollywood. When they did, missing out on them might be like a knife wound that never completely went away. Now that the men are older and the thrill of fame isn't their top priority, Redford reflects on that peculiar, unspoken animosity. Though he wishes things had turned out differently, he is cognizant of the fact that friendships were notoriously difficult to maintain in their society, and that rivalry was intense. Years of subdued animosity stemmed from what had begun as a single assignment. Close friends and family members knew the truth even if they never brought it up in public. Robert Redford has come clean about it at long last. He had known all along that Jack Nicholson had something against The Great Gatsby, and Redford could get the rationale behind it all. Paul Newman, number 5. There is little doubt that the pairing of Robert Redford and Paul Newman ranks high among Hollywood's most beloved actors. Two iconic films will always associate them with those names. Among those involved were Butch Cassidy, Sundance Kid, and Sting. The audience loved watching them work together, and it appeared like they had a great rapport off-camera as well. But, as Robert Redford has just confessed, there was some truth to the matter, particularly in the beginning. Redford claims that even Paul Newman's wife could tell that her husband wasn't initially fond of him. Even before production on Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid began, Paul Newman had established himself as a major Hollywood star. Because of his talent, charisma, and consistent achievement, he was highly esteemed. Robert Redford, meantime, was still figuring out his career trajectory. Redford battled for the part and ultimately won it. Even though the studio had first preferred a more renowned actor to star with Newman. Things wouldn't go swimmingly, though, just because I got the part. Redford now freely acknowledges that he wasn't exactly a team player in those days. His propensity of being chronically tardy to set meant that everyone else had to wait around. Paul Newman, in contrast to the rest of the crew, did not keep quiet about his frustrations. Redford vividly recalls the day when Newman's patience was finally tested. He shamed Redford for his narcissism and spoilt behavior in front of the whole audience. Knowing he had broken a boundary, Redford felt humiliated. Redford changed his ways in that moment, but the tension remained. According to Redford's wife, Newman was quite impatient with her husband around that time. According to what she said with her friends, Newman would keep a careful eye on Redford, seemingly anticipating his next mistake. She mentioned that it gave Redford the impression that he was constantly being pressured. It seemed like Newman thought Redford should just be an adult and behave like a real actor. Plus, being tardy wasn't the only issue. The star power of Newman made Redford feel invisible as well. He did acknowledge that it irritated him that the studio frequently disregarded him while treating Newman like royalty. Because of this, they began an unspoken competition. Redford couldn't wait to show how valuable he was. In contrast to Newman's view that ambition may buy respect rather than earn it. Those conflicts and behaviors carried over into their reunion for The Sting. The film's producer reflected on how Redford persisted in his tardiness on set even after Newman had left to reprimand him. A member of The Sting's writing staff observed that minimal changes had occurred years later when Redford was in charge of the Milagro Beanfield War. Redford continued to arrive up well after the designated arrival hour. However, an unexpected development occurred between the two guys as time went on. The tension between them gradually diminished as Redford matured and gained wisdom from his errors. Not only as performers, but as individuals, they started to get along better. What was once an antagonistic relationship blossomed into something closer. Although Newman's candor made Redford feel uneasy at times, he ultimately shaped him in a positive way. Even Newman's wife saw the change. According to Redford, she went on to brag to her friends about how pleased her husband had grown of her. The man who had earlier cast doubt on Newman's abilities had won his respect for his growth as an actor and a man. Redford says their friendship was complex looking back. There were some bumps along the road, but eventually it blossomed into something real and enduring. They were both aware of where it all started, so even years later they would chuckle about their bumpy start. If you only saw the male performers on his list, you may assume he only had problems with them. Count 4. Joan Rivers. The indisputable chemistry between Robert Redford and Jane Fonda on screen won over fans for several of the projects in which they collaborated. They became one of Hollywood's most beloved couples thanks to films like Our Souls at Night, The Electric Horseman, and Barefoot in the Park. Redford recently confessed that, despite how well-matched their characters appeared on television, they didn't always have it easy behind the scenes. Both Redford and his wife observed that being in Jane Fonda's company may be challenging at times. They started working together in the late 60s, when they were both young, beautiful, and rapidly becoming famous. Their role in Barefoot in the Park cemented their status as a beloved film pair. Fans adored their light-hearted rapport, but a subtle tension was simmering beneath the surface. The intensity of Jane's character would get to Redford at times, he says. Daring was her virtue, inquisitive and fearless in her expression of opinion, regardless of the audience. Contrarily, Redford was far more reclusive and liked to keep to himself. Cooperation was occasionally awkward due to their different approaches to dealing with people and situations. Their disparities appeared to widen as the years passed. In 1979, when they reconnected for The Electric Horseman, Jane Fonda had already achieved great success beyond her acting career. She had become an influential political figure, well known for her unwavering commitment to her principles. Although Redford respected her courage and resolve, he struggled to handle the stress that her outspoken personality brought to the set. Conversations on set would frequently devolve into heated disputes, which made him feel uncomfortable and exhausted, as he recalls. When Jane invited reporters or broached heavy political subjects between takes, Redford confesses he found it difficult to concentrate on his work. It disturbed his sleep pattern and made him nervous. He claims that he avoided her company during that time unless it was absolutely necessary for a scenario. But Jane felt responsible for their icy relationship in some way. Surely she had unintentionally hurt his feelings, she thought to herself. However, Redford emphasizes that it had nothing to do with her. Their personalities just didn't mesh. Even Redford's wife, who was at home, saw it. Spending the day in the company of Jane's limitless energy would leave him feeling exhausted, and he would return from work complaining about it. When he was having a bad day, his wife would listen calmly and gently tell him that he wasn't alone. To make matters worse, she would taunt her pals by claiming that Jane wasn't to blame. The problem was that Robert struggled to interact with individuals who stated their minds. The two performers were much wiser and older when they reconnected in 2017 for Our Souls at Night, a film that took place decades later. Even though they did some of their old things again, their connection was friendlier and more relaxed this time. Fonda, who was just as outgoing and energetic as before, would sometimes put Redford to the test. However, by that point, he had mastered the art of smiling in spite of it all, embracing her authentic self, and even finding it somewhat humorous. Although there have been some tense moments over the years, Redford acknowledges that their friendship is truly unique. Despite the fact that she made him feel uneasy at times, he respected Jane for her courage and candor. They had a complicated connection. The bond between them remained unbreakable through the highs and lows. Though it could be annoying at times, Redford thinks Jane Fonda's energetic personality brought a spark to their work and enhanced the credibility of their on-screen relationship. Next on the list is Faye Dunaway. Working with Faye Dunaway on 3 Days of the Condor stands out among Robert Redford's many memorable collaborations with great co-stars, but for all the wrong reasons. Secretly, Redford has acknowledged throughout the years that working on this project was a low point for him as an actor. Even those closest to him had suspected it all along. It was a golden age for Redford and Dunaway, respectively. While Redford was adored for his affable personality and inherent charisma, Dunaway was known for her intelligence but challenging behavior. Everyone was looking forward to their partnering in the 3 Days of the Condor. Although viewers received the chemistry they were hoping for on-screen, the backstory was significantly less entertaining. Redford could feel the oppressive strain in the air even on the first day of filming. There was an air of authority about Dunaway. The moment she entered a room, all eyes were on her. She would not hesitate to express her displeasure with anything, even if it caused a disagreement with director Sidney Pollack. A sense of unease was immediately apparent to Redford as a result of this. In hushed tones, the team discussed how difficult it was to maintain timeliness with Dunaway present. Even little decisions took longer, and arguments escalated into full-blown discussions, gradually tiring down Redford's patience. Later on, Redford acknowledged that the way she expressed her strong beliefs was just as problematic as her strong opinions themselves. Working with Dunaway put his self-proclaimed ability to remain calm and collected under pressure. Some days he just wanted to run away from her. That was obviously not going to work because of the tight relationship their characters had in the novel. Redford remembered one thing in particular. There was this one day when a nail-biting moment required no other camera work except Dunaway's reaction shots. While Redford was away from the camera, director Sidney Pollack filled in for him. In her autobiography, Dunaway recounted this event, although Redford had a different recollection of it. Dunaway established a tense and oppressive environment on set, which persisted even when he was not in the spotlight. He felt weary and exhausted as he departed from the studio. As they returned home, Redford's wife could feel the strain it was putting on him. He would be exhausted and irritated when he would walk through the door after work, lamenting the increasing level of stress in my life. When he told her how difficult it was to concentrate when one person's energy might change the scene's tone completely, she understood. He seemed more reserved, nervous, and ready for the project to end when she met him. When he got home from filming, his normal positive mood was noticeably absent. It became increasingly apparent to Redford throughout the film that a friendship that would last wouldn't be formed. Though he acknowledged Dunaway's skill, he was certain he would rather not perform on stage with her again. He freely acknowledged that this was one of the rare instances in his entire career when interpersonal conflicts diminished the enjoyment of his work. Afterwards, his wife told their acquaintances about how drastically Robert had changed at that time. Instead of returning home with a smile and plenty of set anecdotes to share, the man appeared stressed and preoccupied. She saw that after 3 days of the Condor, he lost his normal enthusiasm and started counting down the days till filming was over. Only the top 2 remain. Which of these individuals did Robert despise the most? Rest easy. Second on the list is Tom Cruise. Actor Robert Redford was known for his easygoing demeanor, thoughtfulness, and long tenure in Hollywood. Despite the widespread acclaim he received for his unwavering professionalism, not every collaboration he had throughout his lengthy career was fruitful. It was Tom Cruise, in particular, who put Redford's patience to the limit. Despite the brief time they spent working together on 2007's Lions for Lambs, Redford has discreetly acknowledged that it was a challenging partnership. Something was obviously wrong from the beginning, as even his wife recognized. The film's premise seemed ideal at first. It was a weighty tale of politics, duty, and war that brought together Tom Cruise, Meryl Streep, and Robert Redford. The added responsibility of being both an actor and director fell on Redford. Cruise introduced a new kind of energy to the set, which caused friction almost immediately, even though Redford and Streep had collaborated before without any issues. A sudden surge of enthusiasm washed over Redford as he recalled Cruise's arrival. Regardless of the scene's lighting, line delivery, or even the behavior of other characters, Cruise had an opinion about it the second he set foot on set. It was draining for Redford, who liked to maintain peaceful and cooperative sets. The entire time filming, Cruise wanted to make some modifications to the way it looked, sounded, or felt. Celebrity image-obsessed Cruise was a major source of tension for Redford. Cruise was always self-conscious about his on-screen persona. Before an interview, He would second-guess his positioning, facial expressions, and overall impression. This was difficult for Redford to handle because he prized straightforwardness and honesty in his performances. For him, acting was all about being authentic, not flawless. It seemed like Cruise's domineering personality was taking away from the show rather than adding anything. The impact on Redford's wife at home was immediate. After a long day of working with Cruise, Redford would always return home exhausted and irritated, complaining about how difficult it was. Tom Cruise was the only actor about whom his wife had overheard him genuinely gripe, she said to friends. Even after doors were closed, the tension remained. Redford and Meryl Streep were conspicuously missing from Tom Cruise's dinner celebration in his honor. Rumor has it that they intentionally skipped it because they knew they couldn't stomach another night of Cruise's domineering nature, according to whispers around Hollywood. After the fact, Redford revealed that he wasn't interested in attending the party because it was attended by Cruise's inner group. There was zero chemistry between Redford and Cruise, even in the few situations they were in together. It was in Redford's body. Cruise seemed overly staged, as if he were more concerned with making an impression on the audience than with developing genuine chemistry with his characters. The reported heated exchange between two powerful individuals came out as distant and lifeless. According to Redford, the audience could also perceive it. Their strained relationship off-camera was reflective of their strained relationship on set, according to Redford. None of these things, warmth, trust, or genuine respect, appeared between them. Despite Lions for Lamb's stated goal of starting meaningful discussions about global issues, Redford felt that the film's producers spent too much time worrying about how to control Tom Cruise's fiery character. With his unwavering convictions, Redford felt exhausted and let down by the experience, which was far from a serious project. The experience continued to impact Redford long after filming had concluded. He was still feeling the effects of Cruise's presence for a while later, according to his wife. It was more than simply a case of competing egos. It was the meeting of two entirely distinct realities. Cruise embodied vitality, command, and continual focus, in contrast to Redford's innate calm concentration. Barbra Streisand is at the top. Working alongside Barbra Streisand put Robert Redford's tolerance to the test, as he has always liked a laid-back, relaxed work atmosphere. Despite their famed on-screen chemistry and the way we were, Redford subsequently claimed that their relationship off-screen was far from easy. During that period, even his wife could tell he was nervous. The story began in the early 1970s when Streisand, captivated by the subject, was adamant about casting Redford as Hubble Gardner. Redford declined the part not once, but twice, which was a little-known fact. He thought his own role was underdeveloped and uninteresting because the writing was so focused on Streisand's. He didn't think it was worth it to play a character who was just a supporting player in another character's journey. Streisand, though, would not give up. Working closely with director Sidney Pollack, she exerted much effort to win over Redford. To make his character stronger, they even brought in additional writers. But Redford still wasn't sure. He now recognizes that Streisand herself was a contributing factor. From camera angles to scene delivery, Redford says she has a vision for every element, and she is passionate and lively all the time. Redford was nervous because of her immense power on set. He felt trapped and irritated since it looked like everything was done to accommodate her desires. The strain it put on him was visible to his wife. Redford would get home from a hard day completely drained, commenting on how challenging it was to keep up with Streisand's constant velocity. She and her friends would often make light of the fact that Robert, who treasured tranquility and simplicity, found Barbara to be too domineering. Despite Redford's eventual acceptance of the part, the unease persisted. Constantly changing, compromising, and, at times, keeping his own thoughts to himself was a requirement of working with Streisand. Even though they seemed to click on screen, Redford says he maintained his distance from the relationship throughout filming. Her intensity was too much for him to manage, yet he respected her skill. Redford eventually grew to value the timeless picture they made together, despite the cost. He likens our situation to a film in which the glossy end result masks the underlying difficulties. In retrospect, his wife would recall that this was one of the few instances when she witnessed Robert seem distressed while filming. Is Robert Redford someone you like? And what are your thoughts on the performers he despised? Leave a comment with your ideas. For more interesting stories, please like, subscribe, and enable notifications.